Tonight, you wake in ancient Pompeii, not as a senator resting on a marble couch, not as a noblewoman with pearls pinned into dark hair, not as a merchant counting jars of oil near the harbor, or a baker pulling bread from a glowing oven before sunrise. Not even as a servant in a respectable house, moving through swept corridors where the lamps are trimmed and the family gods are polished. Tonight, you wake in a narrow room near the edge of respectability, in a place that everyone in the city knows exists and nearly everyone pretends not to see. You wake before dawn in a Roman brothel. The room is small enough that the walls seem to breathe with you. The ceiling is low. The plaster is cracked. The air holds the stale warmth of many bodies. Old wine, cheap perfume, damp wool, lamp smoke, olive oil, and the sour trace of a city that has not yet been washed by morning. Beneath you is a thin mattress laid over a stone platform. The straw inside it has long ago surrendered to use. It no longer supports you so much as remembers exhaustion. For a moment, you do not move. Outside, Pompeii is half asleep. The sky above the roofs is not yet bright, but the city is beginning its slow morning. A cart wheel groans against stone. A dog barks, then stops. A vendor opens a shutter. A slave carries water in the dark. A baker's oven has already been lit, and soon the smell of bread will move through the streets, drifting above drains, taverns, shops, shrines, and sleeping rooms. Inside the brothel, the night has not ended as cleanly as the city would like to believe. A lamp still burns low in the hallway, its flame flattened and smoky. Someone coughs behind a curtain. Someone mutters in sleep. Someone else is already awake, counting coins by touch because dawn is too faint to trust the eye. You sit up slowly. Your back aches. Your neck is stiff. A strand of hair clings to your cheek. You push it away and place your feet on the cool stone floor. The shock of cold rises through your legs and makes you more awake than you want to be. Your name here is Felicia. It is not the name your mother gave you. That name belongs to another life. One you have folded away so many times that its edges have begun to blur. Felicia means lucky, and someone must have thought it useful when they gave it to you. A lucky girl. A lucky room. A lucky name scratched above a doorway for men who arrive in darkness and leave before the sun can ask them questions. In Rome, and in Roman towns like Pompeii, women like you existed in a strange place between necessity and shame. The city depended on your labor while staining you for performing it. Men joked about you, visited you, taxed you, wrote about you, carved your name into walls, then walked into daylight, as if you belonged only to the night. You were everywhere and nowhere, legal but not honored, visible but rarely protected, named in graffiti, but often unnamed in history. This is not a story of glamour. It is not a story told for crude curiosity. It is a slow walk through a day in the life of someone Rome used, regulated, desired, mocked, taxed, and forgot. And because this is a story for sleep, we will move gently. We will not linger where the past is harsh, simply for the sake of harshness. We will notice the ordinary things. The cold water in the basin, the bronze comb, the oil lamp, the basket of coins, the chalk marks on plaster, the fig eaten in haste, the little shrine to Venus blackened by smoke. We will follow the rhythm of the day from dawn to night. And whenever the world becomes too heavy, we will return to the soft sounds of Pompeii, waking and sleeping under the shadow of Vesuvius. The first act of the morning is not work. It is gathering yourself back into a person. You cross the narrow hallway toward the basin. The walls are decorated with faded painted scenes that clients laugh at and strangers whisper about. But at this hour, They are only patches of color and dim light. Reds, ochres, blacks, lines of bodies turned into advertisement. To the men who come here, the images are promise, instruction, entertainment. To you, they are wallpaper. A woman named Brynja is already awake. She is older than most of you, though not old in the way respectable women get to be old. Her face has hardened around the eyes. Her hair is bound in a rough twist. She has survived long enough that everyone listens when she speaks. Even the keeper of the house, even some of the watchmen when they come demanding money. She does not greet you. She only looks up from the coins in her lap and says, "The water is cold." It is always cold. You splash it over your face anyway. The shock clears the last of sleep. You rub olive oil into your skin and scrape it away with a curved metal striggle. Not because you have the leisure of an athlete at the baths, but because oil and scraping are what you have. Cleanliness in Rome is a matter of oil, water, scraping, scent, and luck. You rub your teeth with a bitter powder, perhaps charcoal, perhaps something harsher, and rinse with water that tastes faintly of clay. You comb your hair with a bronze comb, working through knots patiently, because anger wastes energy. You twist the hair up and pin it. Some days you add a ribbon, some days a borrowed wig. Today you choose neither. Today will be ordinary. Ordinary means laborers, sailors, shopkeepers, freedmen, apprentices, men from taverns, men from the market, men who come quickly and leave faster, men who do not ask your real name because asking would make it harder to pretend you have none. You tint your cheeks with red earth and rub a little color into your lips. Not too much, enough to look awake, enough to look worth the coin, not enough to resemble a respectable matron, because Roman society had costumes for moral categories. Matrona, a proper married woman, had her clothing, posture, and dignity. A prostitute might be marked differently, sometimes expected to wear garments associated with public availability rather than domestic honor. Clothing could become a sentence written on the body. Your tunic is simple, worn but clean enough. You tie it with a belt and adjust the fabric until it sits the way you want. This too is part of the work, creating a self that can survive being looked at. Before the first client, you stop at the little shrine in the corner. It is not grand, a niche in the wall, blackened by lamp smoke, a rough image of Venus, or perhaps simply a figure everyone agrees is Venus because someone needs her to be. There are old offerings, a dried garland, a crumb of honey cake, a pin, a coin too small to matter, but large enough to symbolize hope. You touch the wall beneath the shrine with 2 fingers. The prayer is practical. Keep away the violent ones. Keep away sickness. Keep the keeper from raising rent. Keep the watchman satisfied with small bribes. Keep the young girls from breaking too quickly. Keep my purse heavy enough to eat. Keep my real name safe somewhere inside me. You do not know whether Venus listens. Gods in Rome are busy, and love has many houses, but ritual is not only about certainty. Sometimes ritual is a way of arranging fear into words so that it becomes less shapeless. The first knock comes before the sun clears the roofs. You know the man by his cough before you see him. A fish seller from near one of the gates. He smells of brine, cold wine, and work that begins before dawn. He does not look at you long. Men often do not because they are shy, but because looking too fully might make the transaction human. You lead him into the room. The lamp is low. The wall is cold. The stone platform waits. There is no romance in this beginning. No poetry. Only a few coins, a few minutes, and the first mark of the day in the invisible ledger of your body. When he leaves, You sit for a moment and listen to his footsteps fade into the street. Then you check the basket near the doorway. Bronze coins. Not enough for comfort, enough to count. Rome has always loved counting. It counts citizens, soldiers, taxes, estates, inheritances, votes, debts, slaves, measures of grain, jars of wine, and women like you. Prostitution was legal in Rome, but legality did not mean dignity. Some sex workers were registered, some paid taxes. Some worked in brothels under the control of a Lena or Lena, a male or female keeper. Some were enslaved. Some were freed. Some were technically free, but trapped by poverty, debt, stigma, lack of family, or the simple fact that leaving a profession marked by shame did not create a respectable future. This is one of the quiet cruelties of Roman freedom. A person may be free in law and still surrounded by walls that law does not see. You are not chained to the room. You can imagine walking out into the street. You can imagine turning left instead of right, passing the bakery, the fountain, the shrine, the fuller's workshops, the taverns, the houses with painted walls and guarded doors. You can imagine leaving Pompeii entirely if imagination is generous. But where would you go? A respectable household would not hire you if your history followed. A husband of standing would not marry you. A family might not take you back. Work for women without protection is narrow, and the road from one kind of vulnerability to another is short. Rome has many words for status. It has fewer doors for those who fall outside them. The sun rises. A warm line of light enters through a high opening and touches the floor without reaching the bed. Outside, the street becomes louder. Bread sellers call out. Sandals slap stone. A mule complains. A child laughs and is hushed. Somewhere, water splashes at a fountain as women fill jars and trade news. Pompeii is not a silent ruin yet. It is alive, crowded, dirty, fragrant, noisy, and confident in its own tomorrow. You eat a piece of bread someone left on a tray and half a fig that Brinia tosses toward you without comment. The fig is overripe, sweet in one place and sour in another. You chew slowly. Food tastes different when you do not know when the next quiet meal will come. By the second hour, the brothel has begun to stir in earnest. Women move through the hallway, adjusting tunics, borrowing pins, arguing over oil, laughing at jokes that are not funny enough to deserve laughter, but useful enough to break the morning. A younger girl named Lucia sits on a bench and watches everyone with wide eyes. She is new enough to still look surprised by the routine, new enough to believe each unpleasant thing is an exception. You want to tell her not to count exceptions. You want to tell her the work becomes easier when she stops expecting the day to explain itself. But advice can sound like cruelty when someone is still hoping to escape quickly. So you only nod. The next client asks for you by name. Felicia. Lucky. He says it as if the name belongs to him once he is paid to speak it. He is cleaner than the fish seller, perhaps a clerk or small trader. He asks where you are from. Men ask this when they want a story, but not a truth. You tell him Capua because it is far enough to be interesting and close enough not to invite questions. He nods, satisfied by the fiction. Fiction is useful here. A work name, a birthplace slightly altered, a laugh timed to flatter, a smile that appears before you feel it. A story about having once danced at a festival, about preferring red wine, about liking a certain kind of music. Clients pay for bodies, but many also pay for arrangement. The arrangement of themselves as desirable, of their worries as small, of their guilt as temporary, of you as someone who wants to be exactly where you are. When he leaves, the coins are better. You breathe more easily. Money is not freedom, but it is a small argument against despair. Mid-morning brings the quick crowd. Workers with rough hands, young men daring one another to act older than they are. A messenger in a hurry, a man who smells of the baths, a man who speaks too loudly, another who speaks not at all. The house becomes a machine. Footsteps, doors, coins, basins, oil, laughter. Mutters brief silences, then footsteps again. You begin to understand the day by sounds. The scrape of a sandal means a hesitant client. A coin dropped too lightly means he may be underpaying. A laugh from Brynja means someone has said something foolish and will regret it. A cough from the corner room means sickness is near. A sudden silence from the common area means trouble. Ancient sources speak of prostitutes in ways shaped by male voices. Poets mocking, moralists condemning, lawmakers regulating, graffiti boasting. The women themselves rarely speak directly to us across the centuries. What we know comes from fragments, legal references, inscriptions, architecture, art, satire, medical writing, and the preserved streets of places like Pompeii. History does not give women like you a diary, so to imagine a day like this is to build from fragments carefully, with humility, never pretending that reconstruction is the same as the lost life. But the fragments are powerful. In Pompeii, the building often identified as the Lupanar preserves small rooms, stone beds, painted scenes, and graffiti. The word Lupanar comes from lupa, she-wolf, a term associated with prostitutes. It is a word that turns a woman into an animal and a place into a den. But the rooms themselves are not mythic. They are cramped, practical, and human. The walls do not speak kindly, but they speak. Names appear in graffiti. Boasts, prices, jokes, reviews, insults. Traces of clients who wanted to record pleasure, dominance, wit, or simply their presence. Some names may be stage names, some may be real. Some may have belonged to women long forgotten except for a scratch and plaster. A few letters carved into a wall can become a kind of accidental memorial. Your own name has been scratched near your doorway. Felicia, once with a heart, once with a crude drawing, once misspelled. You used to hate it. Now you sometimes touch the letters when passing, not because they honor you, but because they prove you were not invisible to the wall. The wall at least remembers. Late morning is heat. The stone rooms trap warmth. The air thickens. Perfume turns sour. Oil lamps add smoke. You reapply color to your face with fingers that smell of metal and herbs. A woman nearby fans herself with a broken piece of pottery. Someone argues about a missing comb. Someone else laughs too hard and then stops abruptly. At the basin, conversation turns to protection. It often does. Women share rumors because rumors are sometimes the only medicine available. Linen, wool, olive oil, sour wine, herbs, timing, prayers, amulets. Advice from midwives, advice from old women, advice from men who know nothing but speak confidently. Some methods may have had limited practical effects. Some were useless. Some were harmful. Roman medical writers, including Serranus, discussed contraception and women's reproductive health. But written medical knowledge did not guarantee safe or accessible care for women at the bottom of society. You listen as Marcia describes something she heard from a woman near the baths. Brynja snorts and says the woman near the baths would sell goat hair as silk if someone paid her. Lucia asks a question too plainly, and the group goes quiet for half a breath before someone answers in a softer voice. This is one of the few mercies of the house. Women teaching women through scraps. No one has complete knowledge. No one has certainty. But someone knows which midwife is gentler. Someone knows which herb is likely just parsley. Someone knows when a fever is dangerous. Someone knows how to hide bruises with pigment. Someone knows which client pays late and which one should never be taken alone. In such knowledge, survival becomes communal. The body is never just the body here. It is labor, risk, rent, hunger, danger, and sometimes the only bargaining tool left. A cough comes again from the corner room. You do not look immediately. Looking makes fear more solid. The woman there has been ill for days, perhaps longer. Her name is Elia. Or perhaps that is only the name she uses here. She used to sing between clients, softly, almost under her breath. She has not sung this week. Disease moves easily in crowded places. So do rumors of disease. Rome had physicians, remedies, bath culture, and medical theories. But the lives of the poor and stigmatized rarely receive the full comfort of care. A sick prostitute might lose clients, income, protection, and place all at once. Illness was not only suffering, it was economic danger. Brynja sends someone with water. No one says much. Silence can be tenderness when words would frighten everyone. By midday, the brothel hums like a hive. This is the busy hour, when men break from work, markets, errands, meals, taverns, baths, and business. The Roman day begins early, and by afternoon many people seek shade, food, drink, or distraction. The streets outside are bright and hot. Inside, the light is dimmer but no cooler. You move through the work with less thought now. Thought is expensive. It spends energy. You save it for counting coins, reading danger, and remembering who owes you. A young man arrives, nervous, barely old enough to shave properly. His hands tremble. He has rehearsed courage and forgotten it at the doorway. He looks at the paintings on the wall, then at the floor, then at you, then away again. You soften your voice because mockery would make him worse and kindness costs less than struggle. He overpays after he leaves. You sit with the coins in your palm and wonder whether his mother thinks he is at the forum, whether his father brought him here, whether he will boast tonight, whether he will remember your face or only the fact that he crossed some invisible line into manhood. Men use this place to tell stories about themselves. Few ask what story it leaves in you. The next man is rougher, impatient, smelling of garlic and heat. Another is lonely and wants conversation more than anything else. Another wants to confess guilt about his wife, as if you are priestess, mother, and marketplace all at once. Another wants silence. Another wants laughter. Another wants to be lied to gently. This is one thing outsiders rarely understand. The work is not only physical, it is emotional theater. You learn to read shame, vanity, fear, anger, grief, youth, boredom, and power quickly. A man's first glance can tell you whether he wants to dominate, disappear, brag, weep, or pretend he is loved. Some clients are cruel. Some are awkward. Some are merely sad. Some are generous. Some are dangerous. Some are ordinary men in a society that allows them to leave desire in one doorway and respectability in another. Roman sexual morality was not simple freedom. It was hierarchy. What mattered often was status, gender, citizenship, and control. A respectable male citizen could move through certain behaviors with fewer consequences than women, slaves, foreigners, or the socially stained. Prostitutes were infames. marked with infamia, a legal and social loss of honor that restricted reputation and civic standing. This status did not mean people ignored them. It meant people could use them while keeping them beneath respect. Legal does not mean equal. Taxed does not mean valued. Known does not mean protected. As the afternoon heat reaches its heaviest point, the house slows. Even desire becomes tired in the heat. Clients thin. Women slump in doorways. Someone dozes sitting up. Someone picks lice from her hair with grim patience. Someone sings one line of a song, forgets the next, and laughs. You go to the small courtyard at the back, if it deserves the name courtyard. It is a rectangle of stone with a struggling fig tree in the center. The leaves offer a little shade. The figs are mostly sour. Flies love them anyway. You lean against the wall and let your eyes close. This is one of the few peaceful moments of the day. Not beautiful exactly. The wall is hot. The air smells of drains and old fruit. Someone is arguing behind the kitchen, but the sky is visible. And for a few breaths, nobody is asking you to become anything. You try to remember your real name. It comes slowly. You do not say it aloud. Names are fragile. Some must be protected by silence. Here, Felicia belongs to the doorway, the wall, the basket, the clients, the keeper, the tax collector, the graffiti. Your real name belongs to a riverbank, perhaps, or a mother's voice, or a childhood room, or a village you left unwillingly, or by necessity. It belongs to a life Rome did not record. You hold it in the mind for one breath. Then footsteps return, and you let Felicia come back. Late afternoon shifts the light. Pompeii turns golden. The walls outside glow. Shadows lengthen between buildings. Men leaving baths carry the scent of oil, sweat, and perfume. Tavern doors open wider. Wine begins its evening work. The brothel prepares for another wave. Women fix their hair, repaint eyes, straighten tunics, count coins, hide coins, borrow scent, laugh too loudly, warn one another. Brinia checks the doorway and mutters about the vigils. The watchman, who may arrive for another unofficial payment. Protection, they call it, from whom is never said clearly. Corruption is not always dramatic. Sometimes it is a weekly coin handed over with a tired expression. A fee to avoid trouble. A payment to keep the house operating. A reminder that those at the bottom are often taxed twice. Once by law, once by power. A watchman arrives before sunset. He stands in the entrance with the relaxed posture of a man who knows he does not need to raise his voice. Brinia pays him from a box. He smiles. It is not a kind smile. It is the smile of a door deciding whether to stay open. When he leaves, the room exhales. The evening clients begin. A merchant first, his sandals newly repaired, his fingers stained with ink. He wants to talk about prices, grain, oil, cloth, shipping delays, taxes, the foolishness of customers, the laziness of slaves, the dishonesty of competitors. He pays for an hour and spends half of it complaining. You listen because listening can be labor, and sometimes listening pays better than pretending passion. Then a soldier, sunburned, loud, trying to make himself larger than he is. He has seen enough violence to think tenderness is weakness. Or perhaps he has seen enough violence to be terrified of tenderness and cover it with noise. He leaves quickly and forgets his belt. Marcia finds it later and says the gods have finally sent her leather. Then a clerk from a local office who asks if you can read. You say a little. He recites a line of poetry badly, waits for admiration, and receives a smile shaped like admiration. He pays in bronze an apology. Then the cloaked man. Every house has one like him. Or at least, stories of one. A man of higher status who comes carefully, quietly, perhaps from a world where his name matters. He does not want to be seen entering. He does not want conversation in the hallway. He pays well because secrecy has a price, and because guilt often opens a purse faster than desire. He smells of expensive oil, cinnamon, resin, and clean wool. His hands are soft. His voice is low. He says your work name as if it is not a name but a password. For him, the brothel is not only pleasure, it is escape from the performance of dignity. Roman elite masculinity could be strict in its own way. Reputation, public honor, household authority, political standing, dignitas, all had to be maintained. A man like this may come to a place like this precisely because it is beneath him. Because in a room society despises, he can briefly remove the mask society praises. You provide silence. Silence is sometimes the most expensive thing you sell. When he leaves, the coin he places in the basket is silver, more than the others. You hide part of it beneath a loose stone, not because you are greedy, but because survival requires secret arithmetic. Visible money has a way of becoming someone else's money. Night deepens. The streets outside turn louder and less predictable. Taverns spill voices. Men sing badly. Someone quarrels over dice. Somewhere a pot breaks. The smell of cooked food, spilled wine, gutter water, incense, lamp oil, and human heat thickens into the particular atmosphere of a Roman town after dark. The brothel is tired now, but not done. The women become different at night. Faces loosen. Jokes grow darker. Movements slow. Some clients are refused quietly by Brynia before trouble begins. Others are accepted because the money is needed. Lucia sits pale on a bench, and you pass her a cup of watered wine without comment. She takes it with both hands. A former worker appears near the back entrance, Tertia, perhaps, thin, limping, wrapped in a scarf. She does not work here anymore. Not officially. Illness or age or injury has moved her into another category Rome has no kindness for. She comes sometimes for food, for a coin, for company, for the strange comfort of being among people who do not require an explanation. No one turns her away. This too is a kind of community, not soft, not sentimental, not always generous, but real. A few olives pressed into a palm, a crust of bread, a corner to sit, a warning, a shared curse, a laugh when laughter is all that keeps a person from vanishing before death. The Romans often imagined prostitutes through appetite, insult, comedy, or moral concern. But within the house, there are women who know one another's coughs, habits, lies, scars, favorite foods, bad clients, lucky charms, and real fears. That knowledge is intimate in a way the clients rarely understand. Near midnight, the pace slows. The last men are either too drunk, too sad, too poor, or too ashamed to be easy. One wants to be held and says nothing. One argues over price and is sent away. One falls asleep before anything happens and wakes confused. One asks your real name. You smile and tell him Felicia. The lie is gentler than the truth. When the door closes for the last time, you sit on the edge of the stone bed and listen. The house is never silent, but it becomes quieter. Someone rinses a cup. Someone groans. Someone laughs softly in another room. Brynia drops the bar across the entrance. A lamp is trimmed. Coins are counted. A bucket is carried out. You count your own coins by lamplight. Bronze mostly, a little silver. Enough for food, enough to hide, not enough to leave. if leaving means a new life rather than a different hunger. You remove the pins from your hair. It falls around your face, smelling of oil and smoke. You wash as best you can, cold water again. Olive oil, cloth. The day comes off incompletely. It always does. At the shrine, Venus is a shape in shadow. You touch the wall again, not a prayer this time, more like attendance. I am still here. Outside, Pompeii sleeps in pieces. Some houses are dark, some still glow. A bakery works through the night. A tavern refuses to close. Lovers quarrel, babies cry, dogs prowl. The mountain beyond the city is a dark shape against the stars, ordinary and silent, holding inside it a future no one here can imagine. One day ash will fall. Not tonight in your story, perhaps, not this hour, but history knows what Pompeii does not. The streets, the bakeries, the fountains, the shrines, the houses, the walls, the graffiti, the painted rooms, the little brothel, the names scratched into plaster, all will be sealed under volcanic ash. The city's shame and laughter, commerce and hunger, dignity and cruelty, all preserved together. Centuries later, people will uncover the rooms. They will peer at the paintings. They will translate the graffiti. They will debate the tokens, the prices, the names, the status of the women, the meaning of the architecture. Some will laugh. Some will stare. Some will moralize. Some will try to understand. They may know Felicia only as a name on a wall. They will not know how your feet hurt at midday. They will not know the taste of the sour fig. They will not know which client cried, which one underpaid, which girl sang until illness took her voice, which coin you hid beneath the stone, which prayer you said when no one listened. They will not know your real name unless the gods have kept it somewhere beyond archaeology. But perhaps understanding does not require knowing everything. Perhaps it is enough to look at the narrow rooms and remember that they were not only evidence of Roman appetite. They were workplaces, sleeping places, dangerous places, places of calculation, exhaustion, routine, fear, humor, sickness, solidarity, and survival. Places where women lived long days inside a society that wanted their labor without granting them honor. Before the final lamps fade, stay a while longer in the city around the brothel, because a woman's day is never only the room where others find her. It is also the street outside, the market that prices her bread, the fountain that gives her water, the baths where men gossip, the taverns that send clients unsteady through the door, the magistrates who pretend not to see her until a tax is due, and the mountain that watches all of it without moving. Pompeii at dawn is not yet the quiet ruin that future travelers will walk through with hats and guidebooks. It is a living body. The streets have ruts worn by carts. The walls have election notices painted in red and black. Shrines stand at corners. Bakers turn grain into bread. Fullers tread cloth in vats. Shopkeepers lift shutters. Slaves hurry with errands. Freeborn citizens discuss politics. Freedmen count profits. Women carry jars to public fountains. Children run between adults and are shouted back before they are crushed by wheels. You know this city in fragments because you move through it carefully. The respectable parts are not truly closed to you, but they change when you enter. A glance lasts too long. A conversation stops. A woman pulls a child closer. A man who came to your room last week looks through you in public, as if daylight has erased his memory. You are allowed to buy bread. You are allowed to draw water. You are allowed to exist. But the city gives each permission with a small bruise of contempt. Still, the city feeds you. At the bakery, the oven glows like a little sun. Loaves are stacked in rough circles. Flour dust clings to arms and hair. The baker's wife knows who you are, though she does not say it unless annoyed. Some mornings she gives you yesterday's bread cheaper, because it is hard at the edge. Some mornings she charges full price because her husband lost money on grain, and everyone below him must feel it. You buy what you can. Bread is weight in the hand. Bread is time. Bread is proof that the next few hours can be endured. If you have extra coin, perhaps olives, if fortune has been unusually kind, dried figs or a little cheese, you learn to value food not as pleasure first, but as insurance against the body failing before the day ends. At the fountain, women gather with jars, respectable wives, enslaved girls, freed women, shop women, laundresses, girls sent by mothers, old women who know every scandal. The fountain is one of the city's mouths. News flows there: who is pregnant, who died, which family is feuding, which official is corrupt, which merchant watered his wine, which woman was seen where she should not have been. You do not linger long at the fountain, not because you have nothing to hear, but because you are too easy to become news yourself. A prostitute who listens too closely may be accused of insolence. A prostitute who smiles at the wrong man may be accused of invitation. A prostitute who says nothing may still be discussed after she leaves. So you fill your vessel, lower your eyes just enough, and return. The public baths are another world orbiting yours. Many clients come from there smelling of oil, heat, and damp stone. Baths in Roman life are not only places of washing, they are places of conversation, business, status, exercise, display, and rumor. Men leave them relaxed, perfumed, hungry, and often ready for wine. Brothels and taverns thrive near such rhythms because cities arrange pleasures in chains. Bath, drink, food, gamble, woman, sleep. You know the baths by smell before by sight. Warm oil, scraped skin, wet wool, heated stone, smoke from furnaces below. You have passed near them sometimes, hearing laughter echo under vaulted rooms. Inside, men discuss politics, lawsuits, horse races, prices, inheritance, and bodies. Always bodies. Their own bodies, other men's bodies, women's bodies. Bodies to be healed, displayed, sold, controlled, praised, mocked. In Rome, the body is public in many ways. Athletes oil themselves in view. Slaves are examined for sale. Soldiers train. Citizens bathe. Statues celebrate ideal forms. Yet women like you carry a public body without public honor. Your visibility is not admiration. It is availability imposed by status. This is why clothing matters. Roman dress signals rank. The toga of the citizen man, the stola of the respectable matron, the tunics of workers, the clothing of slaves, the colors, borders, fabrics, and arrangements all speak before the person does. Some sources suggest prostitutes could be associated with distinctive dress, including the toga, an ironic garment linked to public male citizenship, but placed on women outside respectable femininity. Whether rules were consistent everywhere is debated, but the point remains. Society often marks the body it wants to classify. A piece of cloth can say, wife. A piece of cloth can say, citizen. A piece of cloth can say, available. A piece of cloth can say, not one of us. You learn to read clothing quickly because it tells you who might pay, who might lie, who might expect obedience, who might bring trouble. New sandals, Soft hands, a cloak too fine for the neighborhood, a military belt, a freedman's ring, a merchant's ink-stained fingers, a slave's nervous glance over one shoulder. Every body that enters the doorway arrives already written by Rome. And Rome writes you too. Registration, if it applies to you, may place your name on a list. Taxation may turn your labor into revenue. Infamia may limit your future. A keeper may take a share. A watchman may demand protection money. A client may carve a joke into the wall. A poet may turn women like you into a line of satire. A moralist may condemn what his own class consumes. The city writes and writes and writes. What it rarely does is ask. Now return to the narrow room for a moment. The city outside is bright, but in here, the lamp is still the main sun. The basin is chipped. The little shrine is smoky. The stone platform is hard. The air is close. Yet within this smallness, there are systems large enough to fill an empire. Economics are here. Gender is here. Law is here. Slavery is here. Freedom is here, or the imitation of it. Religion is here. Disease is here. Hunger is here. Humor is here. Names are here, some real, some purchased, some invented for survival. Brynja knows this better than anyone. She was not always old, though young girls forget this. Once she had smoother skin, quicker steps, a client who promised something, perhaps even a plan. She has never told the whole story. Older women in houses like this keep their histories folded tight. A little truth may escape after wine, or during illness, or when someone younger is in danger. But most of it remains hidden, not because it is unimportant, but because telling everything is another kind of spending, and she has learned to spend carefully. Brynja's authority comes from survival. She knows which magistrate can be bribed, and which one enjoys cruelty. She knows which tavern sends decent clients, and which sends trouble. She knows how to hide a sick woman long enough to recover, if recovery is possible. She knows when to lie, when to shout, when to flatter, when to bar a door, when to pretend she saw nothing. Some call her hard. She is hard, but hardness can be a shelter when softness would be taken. Lucia, the new girl, watches Brynja with fear and fascination. She does not yet understand that becoming hard is not the opposite of breaking. Sometimes it is how breaking becomes survivable. The women's world inside the brothel is not gentle in a simple way. There is jealousy, competition, theft, irritation, exhaustion, bad jokes, cruel jokes, fights over combs, clients, space, oil, food, sleep, and who used the good pigment without asking. But there is also care. Care that does not announce itself as care because announcing softness is dangerous. A cup of water left beside a sickbed, a warning spoken in passing, a client redirected from a younger girl, a coin loaned without witnesses, a joke offered when someone looks ready to cry, a real name remembered by one person and never repeated outside. This is the hidden domestic life of the brothel, not domestic in the respectable Roman sense, with a wife managing a household under the gaze of ancestors and household gods. Domestic in the survival sense, the routines that keep a group of vulnerable people alive together inside a place built to use them. Afternoon comes again in memory, slow and heavy. The fig tree in the courtyard offers its small shade. The flies hum. Someone has hung a strip of cloth to dry over a line. The cloth barely moves. The heat makes even anger slower. You sit beside Marcia, who is trimming a broken nail with a small knife. She tells you about a client who tried to pay in fish. You tell her he should have at least offered a good fish. She says it was not good. You both laugh quietly. Humor is not decoration here. It is a tool, a knife kept under the pillow, a way to cut the day into pieces small enough to swallow. Alia coughs again. The laughter fades, but not completely. If it vanished every time fear arrived, no one would laugh at all. You think of sickness often, not constantly, because constant fear becomes useless, but often. Fever, sores, coughs, pain that does not leave, bleeding that should not happen, a swelling that might be pregnancy, a missed bleeding that might mean danger, or hope, or a problem too large to name. Roman medicine has words, instruments, theories, recipes, and practitioners. Some are skilled, some are frauds, some are expensive, some are kind, some are not. Women like you build a map of care beneath official medicine. Midwives, herbalists, old women, bath attendants, former prostitutes, enslaved women in large houses who have seen every kind of bodily disaster and learned from necessity. Knowledge travels along these paths because formal respectability does not always carry it where it is needed. You remember a midwife near the edge of town. Her hands were rough but careful. She smelled of garlic, wool, and fennel. She did not ask unnecessary questions. Her room was dark, not from secrecy only, but because shaded rooms are cooler. Women came there in fear and left with instructions, herbs, warnings, or simply the dignity of being spoken to directly. That is one thing dignity can be. Clear speech. Rome denies you much. But sometimes another woman gives you a sentence without shame, and for a moment, the world becomes less cruel. Evening returns. A priest passes the doorway once, not entering. Or perhaps entering later under a cloak. Religious men are men, after all. Sacred status does not remove desire. It only changes the words used around it. A priest of Mercury may joke. A devotee of Venus may ask for blessing. A man who sacrifices at a temple in the morning may visit the brothel at night and see no contradiction he cannot solve with silence. Religion in Rome is practical. Make offerings, keep favor, observe days, honor gods, ask protection, give thanks when business is good. You do not need perfect belief to make a prayer. You need at the shrine. Someone has placed a fresh flower, not expensive, maybe stolen from a courtyard. The stem is bent. You notice it and feel strangely moved. A flower in a brothel shrine is not innocence. It is persistence. The night becomes layered. Clients, coins, doorways, laughter, bargaining, refusal, exhaustion. But under it all is the question you do not speak. How much would it take to leave? You have done the numbers many times. Rent somewhere small, food, clothing, protection, perhaps a market stall, perhaps work washing clothes, perhaps selling perfume, if you could learn. Perhaps a place in another town where no one knows Felicia. The dream changes with the amount of money hidden beneath the stone. When there is almost nothing, the dream is food. When there is a little, the dream is sandals. When there is silver, the dream becomes dangerous. Hope is dangerous because it asks you to imagine a self the world may refuse to give back. You hide silver anyway. The loose stone behind the mat lifts if pressed at one corner. Under it, 2 coins, then 5, then more after a good week. A cheap bead, a folded scrap with marks that help you remember who owes you. A small object from your earlier life perhaps, though you do not take it out often. The hiding place is not secure. No hiding place is secure. But secrecy makes you feel less completely owned by the day. Late night clients are often the most revealing. Wine loosens them. Darkness lowers masks. Some become crueler. Some become softer. Some weep. Some talk about wives, sons, debts, dead mothers, failed businesses, political humiliation, fear of aging, fear of being no one. They come to a woman they do not respect and ask, without saying it, to be comforted by someone they can forget. This contradiction is one of the saddest things you know. Men who would not defend you in public sometimes tell you their most private grief. Men who think you beneath them place their heads in your lap like children. Men who call you shameless hide their own shame in your room. You become a vessel for emotions they are too proud to carry home. You learn not to absorb all of it. Absorption is another kind of injury. Instead, you let words pass through you. Grain trouble, wife trouble, debt trouble, father trouble, fear of failure, fear of death, fear of impotence, fear of gods, fear of sons becoming weak, fear of slaves stealing, fear of being laughed at. The empire of men is full of fear, though men often rename fear as anger. When one leaves, you wash your hands. The water is colder at night. Near the end of the day, when your body feels far away from you, the city sounds different. The day's commerce has thinned. The night's disorder moves in pockets. Somewhere a song rises from a tavern and breaks apart because no one knows the same words. A dog barks again. A cart, illegally late perhaps, rattles over stones. The mountain remains in the dark. You think of the mountain more than you admit. To you, it is ordinary, a shape beyond the city, a presence in the weather, a thing that has always been there. You do not know it will become the keeper of your work. You do not know that ash will preserve the walls that failed to protect you. You do not know that future scholars will walk through rooms like yours and speak in careful voices about architecture, sexuality, economy, and urban life. You do not know that what feels like a disposable day may become evidence. This is the strange mercy and cruelty of Pompeii. It preserved what other cities lost, not because it wanted to honor the lowly, but because disaster has no social hierarchy. Ash covered rich houses and poor rooms, gardens and kitchens, bakeries and brothels, temples and taverns, froze beauty and grime together. Because of that, people like you are harder to erase. The graffiti remains, the rooms remain, the stone beds remain, the paintings remain. The city's underlife remains more visible than it might have been elsewhere. Future visitors may misunderstand. They may laugh too quickly. They may stare at the explicit walls and miss the labor beneath. But some will pause. Some will look at the size of the rooms, the hardness of the beds, the narrowness of the corridors, and understand that this was not only pleasure. It was work under pressure. And maybe, in that pause, something like respect can arrive late. Before the last lamp is nearly done, the story opens one more long corridor, not inside the brothel now, but backward and outward, because no one wakes in such a room without having once belonged somewhere else. Before Felicia, there was another name. Perhaps it was spoken in a village outside the city, where the air smelled less of drains and more of dust, olives, goats, river mud, or wheat drying in the sun. Perhaps it belonged to a child who ran barefoot near a threshold while women ground grain and men argued about weather. Perhaps it belonged to a daughter born to free parents who could not keep every child fed. Perhaps it belonged to an enslaved child whose name was changed before she was old enough to resist. Perhaps it belonged to a girl brought to Pompeii in a cart, or by ship, or by debt, or by hunger, or by someone else's decision. Rome made many roads into the same room. Some women were enslaved and placed in prostitution by owners who treated the body as income. Some were freed women with few options after manumission. Some were foreigners without family networks. Some were poor free-born women who fell through the narrow spaces between respectable work and starvation. Some followed soldiers, taverns, theater troupes, markets, or ports. Some may have chosen sex work as the least terrible option available. Though choice under hunger is never simple, the Roman world was filled with status categories, but lived experience often slipped between them. Imagine a girl before the city learned to price her time. She might have had a mother who braided her hair tightly in the morning. She might have had a brother who teased her. She might have carried water before she could read. She might have known the taste of figs stolen from a tree, the roughness of a wool blanket, the smell of smoke in winter, the fear in an adult's voice when debt was mentioned. A life does not begin with stigma. Stigma arrives later and pretends it was there all along. The path into the brothel might have been gradual. First work in a tavern, then serving wine, then sleeping under the same roof as men who drank too much, then debt, then a keeper who offered food and a room in exchange for more than he first admitted. Or the path might have been abrupt. Sale, capture, abandonment, legal vulnerability, an owner's command. Rome was a world where a person could become property, where a body could be moved across regions and renamed by someone with power. And once inside the profession, leaving was rarely as simple as opening a door. A woman might owe money for clothing, food, rent, protection, or supposed training. A keeper could make every necessity into a debt. Oil costs money, pigment costs money, a comb, sandals, a blanket, medicine, wine, a physician, a bribe, a corner to sleep in. Each could be counted against future earnings. The ledger might be real, scratched on a wax tablet, or unofficial, held in the mind of someone who always found a reason the debt was not yet paid. Debt has a way of making walls invisible. You can walk outside, you can cross the street, you can stand beneath the sky. But if every coin already belongs to someone else, freedom remains a word spoken by people who have never counted hunger by the hour. Now, let the thought soften. Picture a wax tablet lying beside a low lamp. Its surface is smoothed and scratched again, smoothed and scratched again, holding numbers that decide how tired a person must remain. A stylus rests beside it. The lamp smokes. Outside, the fountain continues pouring water no matter what the tablet says. Beauty, too, has a ledger. A Roman woman whose sole desire had to maintain an appearance that labor constantly damaged. The day wore the body down. The work required the body to be presented again. Oil was rubbed into cracked skin. Pigments were reapplied over heat and exhaustion. Hair was combed, pinned, twisted, covered, or brightened. Scent was used not only to attract, but to defend against the smells of the room. A polished bronze mirror gave back a warped reflection, but even a warped reflection could help draw a line around the face before others consumed it with their eyes. Imagine the cosmetics more slowly. Red ochre, or other pigments touched to the cheek, dark powder near the eyes, a little color on the lips, scent from crushed herbs, rose, myrrh if fortune allowed, or cheaper mixtures if not. Wigs and hairpieces could transform status, age, novelty, and fantasy. Some clients liked blonde hair associated with foreignness or conquest. Some liked elaborate curls. Some wanted the appearance of a Greek girl, a Syrian girl, a girl from Capua, a girl from anywhere except the room they had actually entered. A face could become a costume. Felicia in the morning is not Felicia by accident. She is assembled. Oil, comb, pin, pigment, tunic, posture, work name. controlled expression. The face she presents is neither fully false nor fully true. It is a working surface, like a baker's table or a scribe's wax. It bears the marks of use and must be smoothed again. Yet, there are private moments when the assembled face comes apart. At the basin, after midnight, in the courtyard, when the heat makes everyone too tired to perform. In the brief second after a client leaves and before the next sound arrives. In those moments, the face belongs to no one but itself. The older women know this. They know the difference between the work face and the face beneath it. Brynja can see when Lucia's smile has become too brittle. Marcia can see when you have retreated too far into silence. You can see when Alia's laugh has turned thin from fever. This knowledge never appears in law codes, but it may be the most accurate knowledge in the house. Outside, as afternoon becomes evening, the city makes itself beautiful too. Walls glow gold, painted advertisements brighten in slanting light. Doorways fill with shadow. Olive sellers pack away their goods. Bakers sweep flour into corners. Tavern keepers pour stronger wine. The baths empty and refill with new voices. The forum loses one kind of noise and gains another. Pompeii changes costume as carefully as you do. The night street belongs to different people than the morning street. In the morning, women carry water. Merchants open shops. Magistrates move with attendants. Customers haggle over fish, fruit, bread, cloth, and oil. In the afternoon, heat pushes people into shade. By evening, taverns breathe open. Dice rattle. Lamps appear. Men who avoided certain doorways in daylight now drift toward them under cloaks or laughter. The same city that judged you at the fountain sends clients to your door after dark. This contradiction is old and very human. A man may ignore you in public and search for you privately. A city may tax your labor and deny your dignity. A moralist may condemn your existence and use your image for jokes. A client may ask you to comfort him and later speak of women like you with contempt. Rome is not unique in this hypocrisy. It is only very well preserved. The taverns near the brothel are part of your night, whether you enter them or not. Their sounds spill into the street, cups striking tables, dice thrown onto boards, laughter, arguments, songs, insults, deals, threats, the sudden crash of pottery. Wine is a river that carries men toward your door. Cheap wine makes them bold, sorrowful, reckless, sentimental, violent, generous, or sleepy, depending on the shape of the man beneath it. You can often tell where a client has been by his smell. Sour wine from the tavern near the gate, fish sauce from the market stalls, smoke from a bakery, perfumed oil from the baths, leather and dust from the road, ink from an office, metal from a soldier's gear, expensive resin from a man trying to conceal everything else. Smell is a form of reading. The city reads you by clothing and reputation. You read it by scent, footsteps, breath, and the way a man holds his coin purse. Some clients arrive in groups, pushing one another through the entrance as if noise can protect them from shame. They point at the painted walls, laugh at the frescoes, and pretend they are braver than they are. Group laughter is often a shield, alone. Many of the same men are quieter, less certain, sometimes almost childlike in their need for instruction or reassurance. Some arrive alone and remain alone, even while touching another person. These are the ones who carry heavy silences, widowers, failed sons, men whose wives are ill, men who are afraid of their own bodies, men who have done something violent and want to be spoken to as if they have not, men who want not pleasure, but a brief suspension of whatever waits outside. A brothel absorbs many kinds of loneliness. This does not make it gentle. Absorbing loneliness is labor. Being asked to soothe men who will not honor you is labor. Listening to grief that would never listen back is labor. The body is tired, yes. But so is the mind that must switch from fear to flirtation, from boredom to false warmth, from caution to patience, from disgust to diplomacy. So between clients, women restore themselves in small ways. A shared joke, a stolen olive, a complaint about sandals, a song hummed badly, a story repeated because everyone knows the ending and laughs anyway. A moment in the courtyard, a comb passed from hand to hand, a drop of better oil saved for festival days, a memory of a real name held secretly, a quick prayer not to any god in particular, but to the stubborn fact of still being alive. Festivals change the rhythm too. On festival days, the city may become louder, more colorful, more generous, and more dangerous. Men drink earlier, processions pass, garlands appear, shrines receive offerings, people wear fresher clothes if they have them. The boundary between sacred and profane grows thin. A man may make an offering to Venus and later visit one of her practical daughters in a smoky room. He may see no contradiction, or he may see it and enjoy it. Saturnalia, in particular, with its reversals, gifts, and loosened order, can make the city feel as if the usual hierarchy has tilted. Slaves speak more freely, masters play at humility, gifts are exchanged. Dice rattle openly, yet even in festivals of reversal, some people remain beneath the game. A temporary freedom staged by the powerful is not the same as actual release for the vulnerable. Still, festivals can bring better coin. Better coin means sandals repaired, oil bought, a debt reduced, a hidden stash increased, a good meal, perhaps a bath at an hour when fewer people stare. It means hope becomes briefly more believable. This is why you prepare more carefully before such days. Why wigs are untangled. Why pigments are saved. Why Brynja inspects the doorway as if a general expecting battle. Preparation is a form of calculation. The keeper of the house calculates too. How many clients before midday? Which women bring repeat visitors? Which room needs repair but can wait? Which watchman expects payment? Which girl is too ill to work and how long she can be carried by the others before kindness becomes expensive? His calculations may be colder than Brynja's, though sometimes even keepers are more complicated than simple villains. Some are brutal, some are merely greedy, some are former workers themselves, some are bound in their own debts. Systems often survive because everyone inside them is both pressured and pressing down on someone else. This does not excuse cruelty. It only explains how crowded a chain can be. Rome is built from chains, legal chains, debt chains, patronage chains, family chains, status chains, actual chains. Patronage itself is a kind of social chain polished into respectability. A poor man depends on a patron for help. A freedman depends on former master and network. A client depends on favor. A woman like you may depend on a keeper, a watchman, a regular customer, a medular customer, a midwife, an older worker, or a hidden coin beneath stone. No one in Rome is independent in the way later people like to imagine. But some dependencies are honored, and others are despised. Yours is despised, and yet, in the room, men depend on you for illusions they cannot make alone. They depend on you to pretend they are desirable, powerful, forgiven, witty, young, tragic, dominant, gentle, impossible. They depend on you to make time stop. They depend on you to keep secrets. They depend on you to forget them afterward. The forgetting is not always difficult. Faces blur, names vanish, voices merge, but some remain. The young man who trembled and overpaid, the cloaked man who wanted silence, the soldier who forgot his belt, the merchant who talked of grain, the one who cried without explanation, the one who asked your real name, the one who looked like your brother might have looked if life had moved differently, the one who was kind and made kindness painful because it reminded you that the ordinary cruelty was not inevitable. Kindness, when rare, can hurt because it shows that another version of the world is possible, and then leaves. Now let the story return to a soft sound. The fountain again, steady in the distance. Water is one of the oldest comforts. It moves through the city in channels and pipes, into basins and baths, over hands, into jars, across floors, past mouths that curse and pray. It touches respectable and stained hands alike. It is used to wash infants, cups, wounds, pigments, stone, and the faces of women who must assemble themselves before dawn. The fountain does not know infamia when you stand there with your jar. Even under other women's eyes, the water itself does not refuse you. That may be why you think of it at night, in a city obsessed with status. Water is briefly democratic, though the people around it are not. There is also the sea, not far in the larger geography of commerce, though not always visible from your room. Pompeii connects to trade, movement, ships, sailors, goods, languages, stories. Sailors bring coins, odors, diseases, foreign words, jokes, rumors, and little amulets from ports you will never see. Speak of Alexandria, Ostia, Massilia, islands, storms, prices, women elsewhere. Every port has its own version of you, they say without saying. Sometimes that thought makes the world feel larger. Sometimes it makes the room feel smaller. At night, when the doorway quiets, you imagine cities you know only by names. Rome itself, enormous and hungry. Alexandria with its lighthouse, Ostia with ships and warehouses, Capua with roads and dust. Places where women under other names sit in other rooms, counting other rooms, telling other lies to survive. You are not alone, but the scale of that company is not always comforting. History often treats the Roman Empire as roads, armies, emperors, aqueducts, laws, villas, temples, and marble. But an empire is also made from rooms like yours, from bodies moved by trade, from pleasure purchased by men with wages earned in imperial systems, from taxes collected on stigmatized labor, from inscriptions scratched by hands that thought themselves important because they could leave marks on walls. If we tell only the history of senators, we miss the floor. If we tell only the history of generals, we miss the rooms where soldiers spent their pay. If we tell only the history of laws, we miss the people pressed beneath them. Tonight, the story stays near the floor, near the stone bed, near the basin, near the basket of coins, near the scraped wall where Felicia's name appears badly carved and still, somehow, persistent. The archaeological future waits inside these objects. One day, the ash will cover them, the lamp, perhaps, the wall, the room, the graffiti, the street outside, the bakery oven, the fountain basin, the tavern counter, the electoral notices on walls, the courtyards, the thresholds, the drains, the kitchens, the shrines. For centuries, silence will lie over the city in layers. Then hands will uncover it. Excavators will clear ash from rooms that once held heat, noise, and bodies. Scholars will number buildings. Guides will tell visitors where to look. Paintings will be described, cataloged. sometimes removed, sometimes hidden from public view according to the morals of later ages. What one century laughs at, another century locks away. What one era calls obscene, another calls evidence. The dead city will be judged repeatedly by the living. The brothel will become famous. People will come to see it. Some will arrive with curiosity too loud for the rooms. Some will whisper. Some will smirk. Some will hurry through. Some will stop in the narrow doorway and feel, unexpectedly, the smallness of the space. The stone bed is not romantic. The corridor is not luxurious. The painted scenes may draw the eye first, but then the architecture speaks more quietly. This was cramped. This was hard. This was labor. A careful visitor may wonder where the women slept, what they ate, how they washed, what they feared, whether they laughed, whether they loved anyone, whether anyone knew their real names. The walls cannot answer fully, but they can refuse complete erasure. Graffiti is a crude archive, but an archive all the same. Names cut into plaster survive where official biographies do not. A boast may preserve a worker's name. An insult may prove someone's presence. A joke may reveal pricing, literacy, language, desire, boredom, and the texture of a night otherwise lost. These writings are often vulgar, but vulgarity does not make them useless. The lower parts of life are still life, and perhaps that is the final dignity history can offer. Not to pretend the past was kinder than it was, not to polish suffering into romance, but to look steadily at a narrow room and say, someone lived here, someone woke here, someone counted coins here, someone prayed here, someone remembered another name here. Now the city outside grows very quiet. The imagined day has widened and slowed. We have moved from the room to the basin, from the basin to the street, from the street to the bakery, from the fountain to the baths, from the tavern to the courtyard, from the shrine to the hidden coin, from the hidden coin to the future ash. Every place is connected. Every small object leads to another. The final lamp can begin to fade now. The last client has gone. The last joke has softened. The last count of coins is done. Brinia has tucked the wax tablet away. Lucia sleeps. Marcia has rolled onto one side. Aelia's room is still quiet. The fig tree outside is a dark shape in the courtyard. The fountain continues somewhere beyond the wall. Now the last lamp is nearly done. Brinia has stopped counting. Lucia sleeps with one hand under her cheek. Marcia snores softly. Aelia's room is quiet, and you do not know whether that is good. The watchman has not returned. The coins are hidden. The basin water is dark. The shrine holds its little flower in the smoke-stained niche. You lie down, the stone bed is hard, but tonight the body is too tired to argue. Your hair smells of oil and smoke. Your hands smell of metal. The room smells like the whole day gathered into one small space. You close your eyes and hear the fountain outside. Faint, but steady. Water continues. Even when men leave, water continues. Even when coins stop moving, water continues. Even when names are scratched badly into plaster, water continues. The fountain does not know your status. It does not ask whether you are respectable. It only pours for a moment. Before sleep, you let yourself remember the real name. Not Felicia, not the lucky name, not the wall name, not the tax name, the other one, the name from before the narrow room, before the oil lamp, before Rome learned how to price your time. You say it inwardly once, like a lamp lit behind a closed hand. Then even that fades. The brothel sleeps. Pompeii sleeps. The mountain waits. The graffiti holds its breath in the walls. And the night, wide and dark above the Roman roofs, gathers every forgotten name into its silence. Rest now. Let the oil lamps dim. Let the coins stop moving. Let the footsteps disappear into the street. Let the little shrine, the basin, the courtyard fig tree, the cracked plaster, and the narrow room drift backward into history. You are safe here, far from the old stones, far from the watchmen, far from the doorways where men came and went before sunrise. The past has spoken softly enough for sleep, and now, very gently, ancient Pompeii can close its eyes.